Yo, Jednick.
Yes.
This week's episode is about an icon of our childhood. Is, are you going to guess
Oh
Farrah
yeah.
Fawcett? Maybe Kiss?
I wasn't, but who's the
Sir,
icon of our
this week
childhood?
is about Evil Knievel.
What?
I don't know how that guy had such a hold on our generation, but
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I feel like he probably rode right on past his 15 minutes of fame. I feel like maybe he jumped over his 15 minutes of fame.
well, he's still
I don't.
basking in it long after he was upright.
Yeah, he definitely is an icon that transcended time.
So we're gonna talk about him. But I got to tell you, the only ground rule I have: we are not going to talk about your toy. Not a peep about that wind up motorcycle. What you just grind it up. I'm not going to explain to you what it was. I don't want to hear a
I
word.
was only like 4 or 5 when I had it. Um,
Listen,
and
I don't want to. We're not going to talk about it.
I I think that maybe not. I was gonna say I want to say I had the Evil Knievel rider. He came off the motorcycle, and I had him for the longest time, like without the motorcycle and the whole setup. And I remember thinking, why do I still have? Where is the motorcycle to this thing? Because he was in my uh, toy box, and again, I had it when I was so young. I remember I wanted to say it was like one of those cars where you pulled the threaded plastic thing
Yeah,
out and
that's
he took
yeah. I
off.
remember those too. What I just say? We're not going to talk about that. I wanted one so bad. Cue the music. All right, I kind of gave it away already. Jed's in the house, and we're going to talk about Evil Knievel. Hey, Jed,
Yes.
tell me about the toy.
Uh, I can't tell you a ton about it. I mean, my experience again was as we were talking earlier offline. I remember having it. I remember playing with it, and I remember having the Evil Knievel. And he was kind of, if I remember correctly, he was frozen in like the position like he was riding the motorcycle, but he came off the motorcycle, and I remember having just the figure for the longest time, and I don't know why I kept it around, um, because he was the thing with that figurine. I remember he was too big. He was bigger than Star Wars figurines, and he was bigger than GI Joe, and he didn't move, and he was smaller than He-Man. So he was just, and again, he was immobile. So he was. I was like, you don't even have your motorcycle anymore, and I would just discard him to the back of the toy box. Um,
Because he didn't show up with, all everything you see here is included.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he didn't have his gear. He couldn't move his arms and legs, and he's stuck in between. He's smaller than He-Man, and he's too big. He's just like a statue for GI Joe and Star Wars. So he's kind of useless at this point.
I would have taken
Um,
your Castaway. I wanted one of those so bad. My friend had one down the street, and he would jump it, and I would say, "Hey, let me put the ramp up and let me jump it." I don't know. It was like having to use the bandsaw in shop class. You're not checked out on this, Scott. I don't think I should let you use it. Okay, so I didn't. Anyway, all right, let's go. I watched a documentary to prepare myself for this little conversation. Had Johnny Knoxville and Hawk, Tony Hawk, and they were talking about how Gen X kids would, this was such an icon he was. That's the reason I wanted to do this episode, because I don't think people now realize how big this guy was. And another thing that didn't occur to me till reading up about the guy, I remember his last time on a ramp. It was the day before my 6th birthday, and I was in my brother's room, and we watched him jump a tank of sharks It was in Chicago. I don't know if it was a convention center. I don't remember where, but we talked about it at school. I was in kindergarten. We talked about it in the kindergarten that day, and everybody was excited about it. Everybody got all their, wore their best tough skins to school that day because it was Evil Knievel Day. I remember that night jumping on my brother's bed, being with him, and we were excited. We're going to watch this, and he goes off the ramp while on a practice jump and crashes into a camera guy and didn't even do it.
I think I may have seen I don't recall that actually like seeing it live. I probably did. I probably watched it when I was 4 or 5, whenever that happened, but I don't recall. But I do feel like I recall seeing that probably on a replay
I
at some
tried my
point.
best to find it on a replay just to see that camera guy bite that back wheel again, but I couldn't find it. It's forever burned into memory though. As I remember, he went off the right side of the ramp, and it's like I remember thinking, was he scared? Like, did he? Because he's a professional stuntman. He couldn't go up a ramp. That seems weird. And the poor sharks, they were hungry. They were looking for a little jumpsuit.
I thought did, did he make it over Snake River and
No,
didn't he
no.
break some bones trying to jump Snake River?
Yeah, he broke a ton of bones. His website now sells a poster that has like that anatomy dude from the doctor's offices with little arrows
Uh-huh.
pointing to every bone that he broke. So, the kind of cottage industry. I remember when I was in the 90s, I was in college. He was on the morning radio show on the rock station in Oklahoma City, and they interviewed him, Rick and Brad. And I just remember he was just kind of a surly, bitter old guy that had either just had a liver transplant or was about to.
Yeah. He
And
sounds like he was probably the original hold my beer guy. He's like the OG.
the documentary I watched said he was featured in 7 of the top 10 Wide World of Sports episodes on Saturdays.
Huh.
So he had a draw. And then there was a story. I didn't know this. There was a story when he was at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and he taunted Hell's Angels before it, like saying, "You don't see any of them jumping, like they're all bad." And these motorcycle dudes. He made the landing, and he drove around in the little concourse to come back out to the field where the ramp was, and just a whole like bus full of Hell's Angels stormed the field and just started beating his ass, like jumping on him.
Really?
Yes, and cameramen were in the way, and his bodyguards were trying to pull off these dudes. He had this one big guy that was interviewed. He said, I hit one with a chair. He just folded. Like the 70s were a wild time, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
it
could
it
never
sounds
happen
like
now.
yeah, and I loved anything that had to do with motorcycles. So, if you got a dude just going full bore, jumping over whatever, buses, sharks, snake rivers, you
Right?
know, uh,
Buses in England where he almost died.
mhm.
And he had let's see, he had 2 sponsors, of course Harley, and then Mack Truck sponsored him, which was, it would be Red Bull today.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and so he'd take that cape off like he was Elvis, and he walked around with a cane like a dork, and, he'd flip his glasses off, and then he'd go up a hill and race down it, and they talked about the Ferraris and the women and the cash that this guy had, and then, like, when he in retirement, he was, been knocked down a peg or 2 and was missing a couple of discs. He
Yeah.
he lost it all, like, golly, he was like the original Ricky Henderson.
Yeah, he was just, it sounds like he was a pro wrestler that rode a motorcycle.
That's a great way to put it. Well, if, Robert Brumley's lunchbox was to be believed, he was America's greatest stuntman because he had him on the, um he was in that rocket where he was going to jump the river or jump the canyon
Uh-huh.
on the cover of it, and of course the thermos had the stars.
Well, he was certainly America's most popular stuntman. I don't, I mean, being that he seemed that he maybe pulled off 50% of his stunts, I don't know about greatest.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was, I mean, Super Dave Osborne wasn't even really a parody because he just
Right.
kind of
Yeah. That's true.
he just everything he did was a spectacular, a colossal wreck. But when
Yeah.
you look at I went to the Wikipedia page. I got it right here. I don't, but I'll
It's
cut
kinda
this
like
out.
that jump that you, were talking about where he went off and wrecked. Uh, you get 2 hours of buildup. They tune in and go through all the pregame stuff, getting them all set up and getting the audience all amped up, and then even if they do pull it off, it's still like a 30-second thing. It's almost like watching a horse race. You get
Right.
a ton of buildup for 1 to 2 minutes of excitement.
The Kentucky Derby is 8 hours uh, of seeing most of the Friends cast in hats
Right.
and all the different celebrities, and then they bring those little bitty tiny dudes out on those horses. They beat them
Yep.
with a stick for 2 minutes, and everybody leaves.
Right, and then you get an hour of post-race
Right.
analysis and interviews.
So
So,
here's a list of our boy. His first jump was in 1965. This was the early days. Moses Lake, Washington, the obstacle, rattlesnakes, and two mountain lions. He sprained his ankle on a successful jump of 40 feet.
so did he jump over Noah's Ark? What was,
Well, he jumped over a trash can in his neighborhood. Kind of what it sounds like. Everyone's got to start everywhere. So then we show, let's see, we got two pickup trucks. He jumped over 13 cars. Now, let's see. All these are successful. Looks like the first 1967 Tacoma, Washington was 16 cars. He fell off the landing and got a concussion. Now it says it's a light concussion. So that's good.
yeah.
Had a lot more successful jumps over cars. Here's one with three motorcycles. Uh, way to fill the seats there, Knievel. Let's see. 10 cars, 8 cars, all these successful. Let's see. Struck top of box truck short of landing ramp, broke his shoulder. Broken collarbone, cracked ribs. Boy. Yeah, here we go. So into the 70s. So he started to build a name into the 70s with a lot of successful jumps. He crash landed. So let's see, he jumped on the Harleys, broken ankle, broken rib, hands, fracture in back. Um, yeah, this is rough. This is 13 Cadillacs in Atlanta, Georgia. Overshot his practice jump. So he didn't even make the jump.
Was his real name Evil?
Yes. Hang on. There's one more here. Yeah, see, the further you go in this, the more crashes there had. And here is parachute deployed at launch, slamming him into the rocks on the river's edge for Snake River Canyon.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, because obviously, he jumped 3 motorcycles. I did that. I could jump 4, and then, so you keep challenging yourself to more and more. I could jump over Snake River. That's no problem. Oh, is it?
Yeah, turns out. So his name was Robert Craig Knievel, and I should have started with that. Born in 1938, passed away November 30th of 2007. The vital stats should always go at the beginning. Good call. So I remember him in the 90s. I was in college, but I remember I heard him in Oklahoma City. Like I said, the morning guys, and he talked about a book that came out, and that's another thing that was on the documentary. His book. Somebody wrote a book about him that was on. Let's see, I want to get this right. He went on a press tour for like 10 months before he jumped the canyon, and just all the debauchery and drinking and women and cursing and all the things that went on made it into the book. And our boy Robert Craig was not pleased to hear that. And he did a couple of years in the joint for beating this guy with a baseball bat and breaking both of his arms.
Where's he from?
What a great follow up. He beat a guy with a baseball bat. No kidding. I wonder if he liked candy. He's from Montana.
Okay. Well, you mentioned he was jumping stuff in Tacoma.
That's true. That's a good point. But he had the Evil Knievel bus, so he can jump
Yeah,
where he
it
wants
sounds
to.
like, again, you know, aside from the celebrity, he was a real winner. I mean, he just started jumping things as a kid with his motorcycles or whatnot, and just it sounds like he could have been any from anywhere in Alabama, and just had some good fortune. That
Right. Speaking
Hey
of
man,
real winner, no, oh, go ahead.
oh, I just was gonna say, hey man, I bet I can jump that and just keep going. Well, let me get the camera. Hold on, Bobby. Let me get the camera. It's Evil. My name's Evil, Martha. Bobby, just wait. I want to take a picture of this. Come Evil, God,
Oh, Mom.
Mom.
Did you make my cape?
Did you sew the stars on the cape, Mom?
My
Mom, I
God.
told you to sew them stars on the cape.
Look, speaking of stars, I got a couple of stars here that want to announce their show. Buddies of mine that have a similar podcast. They got a little note for everybody. Hold on, please.
Hello, free nights and weekends listeners. This is Nicole,
And this is Heather of Like Whatever.
a podcast for, by, and about Gen X.
Join us each week for a new episode about all things Gen X.
We record on Tuesdays and new episodes drop on Fridays.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts at Like Whatever Pod.
And find us on all the socials at Like Whatever Pod.
Come drink from the hose and ride until the streetlights come on with us.
Or don't. Like, whatever.
Bye.
All right, that was them. It's a good show. Give it a listen if you have time. They put on a good show. Same demo, just East Coast girls that lived through the Gen X era, and it's worth a listen. So back to Robert Craig. I don't know
Robert Craig Knievel. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
what goes through somebody's mind to do that. I mean, Tony Hawk and, of course, the guys from Jackass on that documentary both claim that there would probably be no extreme sports or action sports, as they called them, without him. I don't know if that's true. There was always people
Yeah.
getting blasted out of cannons and fat guys that took a cannonball to the stomach.
Yeah. I don't see that unless I haven't heard their argument for it, but I mean the kids that were riding skateboards that started riding skateboards in California in the 70s and then to BMX bike riding. I don't know that how big of an influence that he had on that,
Yeah.
because I doubt he did, and that's kind of what became extreme sports, the X Games or whatever.
Right. That's true. But, I think there's probably something to it. Before then, they'd have guys in a barrel going over the falls, or a tightrope walker between two skyscrapers, or over, a big gorge or something. So they've always had them. But boy, he really did bring, like I said, that stat earlier where he was so popular on Wild World of Sports. And I remember there were millions of viewers. I think one of the earliest closed circuit TV, like pay-per-view, was him jumping that canyon. So I don't know.
I don't recall. Uh, yeah, I don't have a ton of memories about Evil Knievel.
Well, I saw a commercial on YouTube for the Evil Knievel bike line. It had a tricycle and then like a big wheel, and then a kid's bike with training wheels, and a BMX bike, and a mountain bike, and like a 10-speed. And I'll admit, the BMX bike was pretty cool. It had like an 8-year-old kid on it, and those kids on the big wheels with their Adam Rich haircuts peeling out in the middle of the street. But the dude on the 10-speed just looked like a dork that shouldn't have been buying an Evil Knievel 10-speed to park at the library. They can't all be winners.
No, they can't.
That guy
No, they
certainly
can't.
wasn't. That guy certainly wasn't a winner. Let me get my check.
Get your Evil Knievel 10-speed today. Only at Otasco.
Right. Oh boy. Makes
Was it exclusively offered at Sears?
it was probably it was a joint Sears TG&Y joint. Gosh. Yeah, it was, and of course they were all white, and I had that USA #1 on it. And I think Harley had a piece of that too. Anyway, the movie went on to say that the toy company, Ideal Toy Company, that made your little stunt guy, was just raking in millions of dollars. He had like a couple of $500,000 royalty checks that came in, and his buddy was talking about how he was like rolling in cash from that thing. And then it turned out a toy company didn't want to produce a toy of a guy that was doing time for beating a man with a baseball bat. And so that's when the money started drying up, and that's what kind of was the arc of his career. Like, we'll root for you, man. If you want to almost kill yourself on TV for us, we're all for it. And if you want to have illegitimate children and drink yourself to oblivion and cuss out reporters, that's fine. But we're not gonna. If you get in a fight, that's no good. We're not having it.
We don't stand behind assault and battery. We can't
Right.
support that. When did that happen? The assaulting a man with a baseball bat.
I'm not sure. I think it was late 70s. Like, it was after the Snake River fiasco that he and they talked about that too. They had 3 different rocket cars, and they tested one, and it was designed to fail. They asked the press to come out to show the practice, and it went off course and crashed into the river, which was supposed to generate headlines and interest. He wasn't in that one, but he's going to be in the next one. And then they had 2 ready to go, and they convinced him. So you've got to test one of these. We got to do a test run. And so they shot it off, presumably with an equal amount of his weight in the seat, you would think. And it did the same thing, dove straight into the water. So that was the one that wasn't supposed to go off course. And they were like, oh, well, zoinks. And he wouldn't allow the press to see the second one, because when it landed, it would be anticlimactic for when, he landed safely, but it didn't land safely. So all 3 of them wound up in the drink down there in the canyon.
Was it? See, I don't even. I don't really remember this. So was the rocket car? Was it just like a race car that just had a big rocket engine on the back, or what?
No, he wanted to do a rocket motorcycle, and he had rockets on both sides, and they said this is going to spin out of control, and it doesn't offer cockpit, so we're not doing that. So they ditched those plans, and this was like a cigar shaped rocket right out of the 1930s of those sci-fi movies.
Oh,
And they had it all painted up, Evil Knievel on the side, and he got in it, and he did his his Elvis mutton chop sideburns and slid right in that thing, and
yeah.
almost died.
I was like, why don't they just do like one of the funny cars, one of those uh, with a huge engine on back, and just do that? I don't know.
It'd probably be too heavy.
I don't know. I'm not a daredevil from the 70s.
Yeah, let's say, why don't you
rocket engineer?
Why don't you do it? Why don't you get in one, do it? See, that's people just think they can do that. They can't, man. It's Evil Knievel.
I didn't say I could do it. I was just wondering about the construction of the craft itself.
Yeah, just to
Because my thought process, I was picturing it like an actual, like a race car with a big jet engine kind of to the back to propel it or to shoot it forward. And, again, I don't recall this event. And it kept going into the river. I was like, well, if it's him handling it, to keep it straight, why why don't just you go out on a track and test run it on the track so he can get a handle for it. He can get a feel for it.
no, man. Just take a look at Brumley's lunchbox.
All right. Well, can you
I
put me
think
in
it.
contact with Brumley?
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's still back in Oklahoma. I think it was Robert Brumley. I know Kevin McCormick had one, but I don't. Now I think about it, Brumley seems more like a burlap sack type that would bring his lunch.
Is it
Maybe.
Brumley the dude that hangs out with Tennessee Tuxedo?
Yes. There's no reason for that to make me
Brumley.
laugh. Die, Tennessee.
I did the Colonel McBragg voice. And Brumley.
Robert's a good
How did
dude.
Tennessee Tuxedo and Colonel McBragg work their way into this
Well,
conversation?
they were the same character, same voice actors. They get confused. So that's the deal with Evil Knievel. I don't know that, and I've made this point before to kids now, Gen Z or whoever's behind them. You can't really explain celebrity as we knew it. Like my favorite rock band, I would have to wait till the rock magazines came out to read a half-page article that their manager sent to them that the things they wanted them to find out about. That's it. Now, their favorite pop star, they know what they had for breakfast and where they shop because they're all over, their social media feeds and stuff. There's no real mystique now. And so I don't know that you can achieve that kind of celebrity that you could back then.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I don't disagree.
I remember when I was in the first grade, speaking of Kevin McCormick, he was Peter, no, his brother was Peter Chris, and I think he was Ace Frehley for Halloween. And there were several members of Kiss on my street, and there were a couple of Evil Knievels. So I think I was probably Casper, one of those plastic masks, because mom and dad sucked. I imagine that's what was going on with me, but their mom did their makeup. It was so cool. Then the Evil Knievel kid lived next door, and he got to ride his bike. It wasn't an Evil Knievel bike, but
That's
what
too
can you
bad.
do? Yeah, it is too bad. So anyway, that's what the late 70s sounded like. Disappointment with your brother on a little black and white TV. That Evil Knievel didn't get eaten by a shark, but a cameraman almost died.
When did the Happy Days episode where Fonzie attempts to jump the shark?
I think it was the early 80s.
So they maybe got the idea from Evil Knievel.
I don't know.
And then we got the term to
Fonzie
jump the
landed
shark.
it.
Which of course gave us the term jump the shark.
Right. Fonzie landed it and didn't crash, all with his leather biker jacket on, which is just one of the
Yeah,
most
that's so ridiculous.
absurd things I've ever seen. I remember there was a reunion show where Mr. C, Tom Bosley, was talking about, well, that show went on for 3 or 4 more years after that. I don't know why they use that as when a show loses its appeal. I kind of wanted to say, have you watched it, Mr. C? Have you witnessed this? And then every show after that, everybody remembered the shark jump, and this, I don't care what the story is. A guy upstairs jumped a shark with his leather jacket on and his shorts. I don't know. What's going on?
They went out to Los Angeles and Fonzie decided to become Evil Knievel on water.
Do you even remember the premise of that show? Why was he jumping the
I
shark?
don't. Yeah, I do not.
I think it was to win the favor of leather Tuscadero.
Impress a
Pinky.
waitress. Impress Alice.
What was her name?
Alice?
Shut up. No.
Linda Lavin.
Okay. This is off the rails. Well, we did a fine send-off for Evil Knievel. You were kind of a jerk, and you almost died on TV for our pleasure, so we salute you.
So long, Evil. We'll remember you fondly.
Oh my
It made me think of something. I gotta believe ABC and the wide world of sports in the mid 70s weren't a fan of the old proverb, see no evil. Because here you could see evil, Knievel, that is, jumping things.
People were clamoring for you to come back to the show, too. That's the puzzling thing.
That is puzzling.
Jednick, we did it. We got through it. I appreciate it.
Quite welcome, my friend. Enjoyed it.
All right. See ya.
Adios.
All right. That's the story of a man named Knievel. I know that we lost every female listener in the first 5 minutes of this deal because they didn't care one bit. Every crowd shot they showed was just dudes there drinking beer, watching somebody almost die. Thanks for sticking it out. New shows every Friday. Follow us on our socials. Free Nights and Weekends podcast at Facebook and X. We'll see you next Friday.
Share thrills galore, capped by Evil Knievel's leap across a shark-infested pool in a 90-minute special Monday night on CBS.